Hi everyone, and welcome to TechVoices, the podcast giving full transparency about the reality working in tech. I'm your host, Olga Nedelko, and today we are talking to Maria Mata, a senior software engineer with over 11 years of experience in tech. Hi Maria, and welcome to TechVoices. Maria, could you tell us more about yourself and your journey in
Yes.
software engineering?
Hi, I am Maria. I am based in Venezuela. I was born and raised there. I was living in Venezuela my entire life until around 2 years ago when I made the move to Germany. My career in tech started at university because I studied computer engineering. That's where my learning started, but I would say my real experience started in 2012 with my first job as a mobile application developer. And I continued for several years learning different technologies. I also learned about full stack development. So I got to know more in-depth technologies like Ruby on Rails, React, JavaScript. In 2019, I started considering the idea of moving abroad. So I started applying to companies in different countries, and one of those countries was Germany. And eventually, I locally landed a job at a fintech company, which is where I am currently working. I have been living and working in Germany, more specifically in Berlin, since 2022.
One question regarding your starting in computer science. What made you choose studying computer science in the first place?
I always thought it was really cool how you could basically create anything, applications that could solve problems just with lines on your computer. That always caught my attention. And then at the time I started looking into, I studied in computer engineering in the career. And I can say that I liked everything that I saw. I enrolled myself in university to study.
And when enrolling into university, do you had any worries, thoughts about going into this career?
And when I enrolled into university, I also didn't see a lot of women studying that career. So in the back of my mind, I was a bit worried about, do I really have it in me to succeed in this career? Eventually, I think I proved myself that I was more than capable.
What mindset did you had to overcome these feelings and this fear?
To be honest, I think with a lot of persistence, I pushed myself quite hard. And eventually, through pushing my own limits, I developed confidence in my abilities.
So you also mentioned moving abroad and also starting your career, your more practical career in the 2012 as a
Yes.
software engineer. So what made you focus on mobile software engineer?
At the time, there was this boom with mobile applications. And I started I downloaded into my computer. I think at the time it was Android Studio because I had my Android phone and I wanted to try out what it would be like to build mobile applications. And I really liked it. And so I stayed with that. And then I also explore like other technologies like cross-platform application development, not only with Android Studio, but also with Qt, C++.
How did you learn mobile development and what languages did you started with?
Mostly by myself, because as you are saying, that wasn't taught in university. So I looked up courses online on Android development and also cross-platform. There was good documentation at the time. Also, I think videos on YouTube, and I started following tutorials and learning that way. But the foundations of that, which was Java, is something that I got to see at university. So at least I had the foundations, and then with that I could learn like more in depth about the framework.
Going into that phase of learning by yourself, mobile development, how do you get out of this tutorial hell And what strategy did you use to learn the technologies?
First, to get out of tutorial hell, I will say what helps the most is gaining some real experience working, because that's when you encounter real problems and really have to think hard about how to solve them. And that's when, in my opinion, when you really develop your skills. Because in tutorials, you are kind of always taught what you are going to do, and you follow something like prescripted, and you are not really exploring like alternative paths or what you can do when a problem arises. So yeah, in short, I guess by working is how you get out of tutorial hell. And if there is no opportunity for you in that moment to work, you can also, like, for example, take ideas for projects that you have thought about before and like really embark on a journey of building them yourself. Yes, you will also encounter challenges and really learn.
You mentioned projects. So I just assume that somebody does not have the opportunity to work and get a real job or get a job in tech. What kind of projects would you say that are the ones that will give you that real experience that we are talking about?
Like, for example, if you are interested in a particular area, like let's say mobile application development, and you had a cool idea for an application to, I don't know, an application to keep track of something, anything, any idea that you had in the past, I would say to go and break down that idea into steps and to start building it to gain some practical experience.
What would you say? Some people are not a fan of documentation. Would it be important when doing that process of learning, documenting it publicly or in a blog or whatever resource you have? What is your take on that?
I think personally for me, documentation is very important because it helps keep your code bases maintainable down the line. If you code, if you like write down all of your code and it is not well documented, what can happen in the future, months or years later, is that you come back to that code base and it's harder knowing how to pick it up or what's like understanding the whole of it. If it is well documented, it is better in the long run. So that's my take on documentation.
One thing that I realized when looking at your LinkedIn page or your CV is that you were a mobile developer and then you took on to freelancing jobs. How was that experience for you? What made you start? What was your motivation for that move?
Well, to start with freelancing development, actually because I continued getting offers for different projects, and these were not like long-term contracts or like full-time positions. So what I liked about that is that I could work at my own pace back then. I like working in that modality, so to say.
What did you learn about that period of not having a team working along and just being by yourself coding different products?
I would say to organize my time and to plan, because I didn't have a team or someone like telling me what the next steps are. I had to manage everything by myself. So yeah, time management and planning were really skills that I could develop while freelancing.
Do you had any kind of balance?
I strive to find that balance. For a time, I think I didn't have it because I was too focused on work and on my projects. And for times, I got to neglect important things like my health. And I think your health and your well-being are the most important things, first and foremost, before any job or even before your career. Because if you don't have good health, how are you going to work or really do anything? So that's why I think keeping a work-life balance is really crucial, I would say.
What would your day look like if you didn't have work-life balance, and what would that balance look like for you?
Without balance, it would look like starting my day with work and not really knowing where to stop that work. Like, for example, I already worked 8 hours and then I continued working more because I am too focused solving a problem. And then time is just running and then it's night and you spend your whole day working. That would be for me, not work-life balance. And having a balance is like establishing boundaries on where your work begins and where your work ends, and knowing how to switch your mind off when it is time to focus on yourself and your personal life.
Being a freelancer and having so many projects, you had also to experience different technologies. What strategy did you use to learn and keep your knowledge up to date?
Well, mostly embarking on my own. If I encounter requirements for a project that we needed to use a certain technology, then I went and delved deeper into that technology and into the documentation that was available. Also doing from time to time courses in online platforms. And yeah, like I mentioned, read the documentation, videos on YouTube, that kind of thing.
What kind of courses are we talking about?
Like, for example, Coursera. I got to do several courses there a while ago. These days, I also really like LinkedIn Learning because they have very, very good courses. And there are also other platforms that are not specifically video. They can also be like text-based, and you can really learn at your own pace with them.
And did you had any objective when coming to a course? Because sometimes we start a lot of courses, but then we don't finish it.
Mhm.
Did you had any mindset that you would go into a course that would really help you to get everything done?
If I had a clear goal in mind of what I wanted to learn and to achieve, that helped me maintain the motivation to continue the course. And that goal could be, for example, for work, because of requirements to learn and use that technology, or for a personal project that I really wanted to continue and to finish until the end. So in that case, I would venture into really learning the technology and not abandon it.
And then you mentioned that you wanted to relocate. Why was that? And did you had any challenge doing that?
Yes, I always wanted to work and experience life abroad, but I started taking it more seriously, also influenced by the situation in my country, in Venezuela. So I wanted to have better conditions to develop myself professionally. So that's why I decided to move. And Germany was and is a really good country for that. So yeah, that's what's guided my decision. And about challenges, yes, I encountered challenges when moving abroad. First of all, because that was in 2019, 2020, when COVID-19 hit the world. So everything was paralyzed. Airports, institutions were slowed down. So my plans to move, I really couldn't follow through with them. It was really difficult at the time. So I had to wait for a long time until things were better to really move here.
Okay. And even when the COVID hit, you didn't really give up on the thought of I'm gonna move. What motivated not to give up, and what would you tell to someone that is really trying to move abroad but is just encountering so many barriers to do it?
Well, I can say that I really got to have the motivation to be persistent with my goal. Also because I encountered very helpful people in the company that hired me. And I knew they were waiting for me to start the position. So that kept me motivated. And to someone in a similar situation, I would say to continue being patient if you have already been patient, and continue being persistent with your goal, because it will, in the end, it will pay off. Your efforts will pay off.
What would you say to someone that is applying, or what companies should he or she target?
Well, in my case, I mostly, when I was applying to jobs, I targeted companies based on the technologies that I wanted to work on. So that was my goal when applying. But you can also, during the interview process, you can also get a feel of what is the culture of the company. And you can get to see if that would be a supportive place for you, and if that is a place that you would really like to work on. And you can use that to guide the rest of your process. Like if you want to continue with that company, then go ahead. Or otherwise, you can continue interviewing with other companies until you find something that you feel would be the right fit for you.
So after being employed and getting this job and moving abroad, did you encounter any challenges, especially also talking about impostor syndrome?
Yes, I encountered that challenge specifically, not only since I moved here, but also before, throughout my whole career. Because this is like having this idea at the back of my mind that my accomplishments and my milestones all come down to luck or to circumstances in my favor. But this is something that I am trying to work on. I think it's important to keep a balanced view of your accomplishments, like recognizing the role that people in your community, in your family, and even your loved ones play in advancing your career, and at the same time, acknowledging the value of your own efforts, and also keeping in mind that this is a field, technology, that it is growing always at a quick pace, and there is always something new to learn. So you won't ever finish learning. So you don't have to feel bad because you don't know something. You just go and learn it and continue learning all the time.
Right. And also in this company that we are talking about, you got promoted to senior. Was that planned? What mindset did you use to get that to that senior level? And what would you say defines a senior software engineer compared to middle or junior?
Yeah. I started, I think, to get promoted to senior. What I did was taking a more proactive role into the projects that I participated on, like coming up with initiatives on my own and being very proactive about it. I think that really helps in you like going up the ranks.
What would you say would be like a proactive attitude for a software engineer in the team? And what kind of initiatives does it depend on the project, on the team, on what you are working? Could you please put a bit of more context to it?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so I don't mean more workload. What I mean is like you identify problems and you come up with ideas to solve those problems. Or like, for example, like going the extra miles to improve a process as well. That can also help set you apart.
It's really important to be visible to get a senior. And it may be confusing to hear because it may sound like you have to be in meetings promoting yourself or always promoting your work. What does it mean?
I think visibility is about making sure that your contributions are seen, like they reach the team and they reach management. For these aspects, I in particular find that it is helpful to showcase your work in team meetings or in knowledge sharing sessions. That also shows a proactive attitude, and that can really help you gain more visibility.
Stepping into the senior software engineer position, do you still get that imposter feeling, or do you thought that they were these huge expectations that were expected from you? Do you had any of those feelings?
Yes. Well, to this day, I sometimes, I don't know if I still feel like I am really my senior role, or if I could have better abilities. So I would say dealing with imposter syndrome is something that still comes up for me from time to time. Because sometimes you encounter things that you don't fully know or at the moment understand, and that can like really like trigger that feeling that what is this? Why don't I have enough knowledge or understanding of this? But I think that is normal. I mean, you can't know absolutely everything. You always need to keep learning in this field. You shouldn't feel bad if you don't know certain things. The important is to keep an attitude of constant learning.
From a senior perspective, what would you like to see in someone that wants to become senior and that wants to take on that position?
I would say that there are certain qualities that, in my opinion, are very important for anyone that is looking to move up to the ranks in tech or advance to a more senior position. So first and foremost, I would say having a willingness to learn. We know technology is always evolving, so a constant commitment to expanding and improving your knowledge and your skills, in my opinion, is essential. Also, being proactive is equally important, and this means taking the initiative to identify and solve problems on your own or suggest improvements and contribute sometimes beyond your immediate responsibilities. I think that shows dedication and drive, which is important for you to be considered in a more senior position, in my opinion. And lastly, I would say good communication, being able to clearly convey your ideas and knowing how to adapt your communication style to the level of your audience. And also not only communicating, but also listening effectively, because that improves teams dynamics and also ensures that your projects are always running smoothly and efficiently. So I would say it's a good skill to develop throughout your career.
Technical interviews. Let's touch a bit on that side. So, technical interviews can be scary for software engineers. What practices would you recommend to someone that is facing this? Oh my God, I'm gonna fail. I'm so nervous in this, or just gets frozen when a technical question just pops up. What would you say to that person, individual?
To be honest, that has also happened to me quite frequently in interviews. They are totally nerve-wracking, so I understand. I think based on my previous experiences, I would say first, being prepared for the interviews would be key. So if the information is available, you can research what the company's interview process is like to kind of get an idea of the challenges that you will be facing according to the role that you are applying for. It can be whiteboard sessions, like system design questions, behavioral questions, etc. So I think knowing in advance what you will be facing can help you prepare better. In a solid foundation in your skills, and for this you need to master the fundamentals. So I would recommend focusing on key concepts that always come up in these interviews, like there are structures and algorithms. For example, arrays, linked lists, trees, hash tables, sorting and searching algorithms, etc. Also, regularly solving problems on your own can help you exercise your mind and sharpen your skills for these interviews. An important aspect also, I think, is system design and architecture. For this, I would recommend to study and to understand the basics of these aspects, and also practice explaining your thought process. Practicing with your peers or with a mentor, if you have one, can also help you really prepare and get comfortable with the interview process. And as for behavioral questions, I would recommend to prepare using the STAR method. That would be situation, task, action, and results. So framing your experiences based on that method. That could really help for the behavioral aspect of interviews. So trying to keep not keep a too high level of stress during your interviews is important. Practice deep breathing, meditation, anything that can help you relax and stay in the moment. That is also helpful.
And I just imagine someone that is getting rejected, and maybe he or she is targeting a junior position and gets to the interview, technical interview, so scary and so paralyzed that cannot pass to that situation. What would you recommend that person? How would you reframe that mindset that the person is having when confronting this kind of interviews?
What I think helped me deal with that would be preparing myself as much as I could so that I could feel comfortable in the interviews. And also, if I got rejected, to understand that that is part of the process, because there are always so many people applying for a role. And sometimes it's down to not just your skills, but also down to luck, who gets the role. So not to take it personally as well. I think the more that you expose yourself to an environment, the less that environment or situation gives you anxiety. So doing more and more interviews made it easier for me down the line. At first, the first interviews were super scary, but then when I was now used to it, it wasn't as scary. There was always a bit of nerves, but not as scary as it used to be.
Now let's touch a bit on habits. What habits did you had to learn or change about your behavior to get to that senior role?
Being more proactive. And I think when you are a junior engineer or even mid-level, you only take on the work that you see is available for you to take. Like there is this task to do, and you just take that and do your task, you do it well, and that's it. So for me, taking a more proactive role is identifying issues or opportunities for improvement, and really going on down the path of improving things.
So, Maria, just wrapping things up, what advice would you give a software engineer or an aspiring software engineer?
I would say to be persistent with your goals and to develop some kind of grit to really keep on with your goals and never give up. This is, I don't think, is the easiest field to learn and also to work on, but persistence really pays off here. I would also say gaining practical experience is invaluable. And if you don't have that practical experience in the beginning, you can always gain it by working on personal projects, contributing to open source projects, to apply what you have been learning all along. I think it's really important to put what you have learned into practice. And also, I think it gives you something to showcase for when you are applying for jobs and in interviews and to improve your resume and your CV.
So thank you so much for coming into Tech
Sure.
Voices.